Hello, inspiring educators. Adele Bates, Behaviour and Education Specialist here in this second part of looking at anxious teachers and behaviour in the classroom in 2020. So if you haven't worked with me before, I can tell you that I've had juice poured on my head, I've been whacked by a skateboard, and I have taught a Year 7 pupil how to read their very first word. I am a behaviour and education specialist, and I support school leaders, classroom teachers, homeschooling carers and parents to work with and help their children and pupils with behavioural needs and SEMH, social, emotional, mental health issues, so that these young people can absolutely thrive with their education and be a positive part of social change. I am the forthcoming author of Miss I Don't Give a Shit, out next year, and I am a TEDx Speaker 2020, which means it's happening in 2021. So in today's video, we're just going to have a quick recap of what we looked at yesterday, which was all about us giving ourselves a permission slip to be human as a teacher, and how actually that creates a much emotionally safer environment in our classrooms, so that our children are able to feel safe, and we also help them acknowledge what they're going through this year, and we give the opportunity for our classroom to be actually quite a real space, and one that is able to hold and facilitate different emotions, different reactions, because if we invite that space in as a safe emotional space, then actually the children are much less likely to kick off because they don't feel like they're having to hold lots in. So that moves us on to what we're looking at today, which is, okay, we've started to look at where we're coming from. How do we then work with the children in that way, or the young people in your classroom? And one of the keys here is about being the guide. A teacher in a classroom is a very powerful person, and I don't mean that as in shouty, screamy, disciplined power, because for me that's not power. That's tyranny. But you're a very, very powerful person in your classroom because you are able to set the tone, the expectations, the pace of the learning and of the environment and of the community that's set up in your micro community in your classroom. So when something happens, the pupils will be looking to you on how you're reacting. So for example, if a young person is very distressed, there's some distressing behaviour going on, let's say they throw the desk around. If you react in a way that signals this is a stressful situation, this is not acceptable, this is awful, this is horrible, then guess what message we're sending to all the other children in that classroom? We're sending the message that this isn't a safe space. And for the kid who's actually got so distressed that they've kicked that desk over, you're also sending the message to them, you're not a safe person. We don't want to be around you. So you can start to see how your reaction to any challenging behaviour that's coming up for you actually sets the tone of how it's going to affect all the pupils in the class. So let's pick another example. I'm thinking about low-level disruption, often bandied about. Now that can mean lots of different things in lots of different circumstances. In order to support it, we need to get specific. So I'm going to say it's just after lunch. All your children have come in and there's this kind of heightenedness. Maybe there's been a fight. Let's say there's been a fight at lunchtime. And so it's not that they're being bad, but there's this kind of chatter and constant, almost like excitement bubbling. And it's distracting you from the work, right? I'm sure lots of teachers know this situation. Again, if you go in and shout and scream and push those boundaries on and give out lots of consequences, you're sending the signal that there's something very unsafe about this environment. Now remember, we're already dealing with young people who are already anxious, some who have maybe experienced bereavements this year, some who have really struggled with their mental health during isolation. is that really the message we want to be giving to them at this time? They're looking to you. You are the guide. You have the power to change the mood and the emotional safety within this classroom. So we already talked about in the first video about how you can genuinely do this. So it's not a case of, okay, everyone, let's all just be fine. It's not that. If you didn't watch the first video, go back, watch that. Yeah. But how we react to the different behaviour that is coming up is going to really, really help the safety around this classroom. So I'm thinking back to that low level chattering thing after the lunch and the fight. How about, yeah, okay, there might still be consequences for the young people who don't fulfill your expectations or don't follow the rules of the behaviour policy or your classroom. There may be consequences, but let's look at how we give those out. Is it shout, scream, you know you're not supposed to do this, there's been 3 warnings and now you've all got detentions, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. What we're doing with that kind of thing is we're actually just taking the energy more and more heightened and stressy, right? We can also go about that exact same consequence, if that's what's needed with our school's behaviour policy, by saying, you've had 3 warnings, I can see that there's something big that's gone on at lunchtime, we can look at that at an appropriate time, but right now it's time to focus on our work. You've had 3 warnings and unfortunately you haven't listened, so we will be, and whatever the consequences. And then maybe it is that you need to have time to unpick this fight at lunchtime, or more learning focused, maybe it's that you need to slightly adapt your lesson to put in a transitionary activity. So this is a really, really useful tip. If you have a class that comes in very fizzy, or on the other side, perhaps very lethargic, you know, there's going to be all sorts of different responses going on. Maybe they can't go in and focus on Dickens page 792 straight away. Maybe there's some kind of transitionary activity that needs to happen, whether that's an academic starter that helps them get into the mindset. So not just the academic place, but also the mindset. We all know, as humans, that biologically, let's say we've had that fight, the adrenaline is physically running through their bodies. Our bodies need to regulate. And that's why you, as the teacher, have so much power, because you can put in that regulation space through a transitionary activity, or if it really needs to be, it could be a very open discussion about what's gone on. Because for some pupils, for things they're going through, they may need that. So either way, it's about you being the guide and you setting the tone of that classroom so that it doesn't get carried away without you. So sometimes this is a bit more difficult because there are various other things going on with the young people, and there are some things that are out of your control, and it's not always that slight quick fix. So in the final video of this little series, I'm going to be looking at those things, looking at how do we build positive relationships with our young people so that we can do all this kind of thing. How do we create an inclusive community so that we can? And how do we understand better what's going on for children when we can't see the issues? So these are all areas that I'm going to be talking about. We've got a free webinar coming up on the 24th of November, and I'll be giving you details in the next video of how to sign up for that. That's a free webinar, and that is the introduction to a week-long masterclass that will be happening the following week, so the first week of December. There are both recorded and live elements to it, so if you can't make it live, that's all doable. I'm going to be giving you some more information about that in the next video. Thank you very much.